Welcome to News Beacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. It all started on a gray, overcast day in Brussels, in mid-2024. A day that would mark the beginning of a new era in global trade relations. In a packed press conference, European leaders announced steep new taxes on Chinese electric cars, a bold move designed to protect their own carmakers from what they called unfair competition. On a nearby dock, thousands of Chinese EVs sat in limbo, their future suddenly uncertain, as customs officials scrambled to interpret the new rules, and car dealers wondered what would happen next. The move sent shockwaves through the global economy. Stock markets trembled, investors scrambled to adjust their portfolios, and analysts everywhere tried to predict what this would mean for the world's supply chains. In Beijing, Chinese officials wasted no time in retaliating. They slapped tariffs on European exports like Spanish pork and French brandy, targeting industries with deep political and economic ties to Europe. The world watched as two economic giants squared off, turning what began as a dispute over cars into a full-blown trade war that threatened to engulf other industries as well. In Japan, factory manager Kenji Tanaka watched the news, his brow furrowed with concern. His company made crucial electronic parts for both Chinese and European carmakers, and he knew that any disruption could have far-reaching consequences. Now, his business was caught in the crossfire, with jobs and livelihoods at risk. Workers gathered in tense meetings, wondering if their next paycheck would be their last. News reports showed Chinese EVs flooding into Central Asia, finding new markets as European dealerships in those regions stood empty, their showrooms eerily quiet. Trade routes on the world map shifted overnight, old paths from China to Europe stalled, while new ones to Central Asia and Russia sprang to life, redrawing the map of global commerce in real time. The first shot had been fired, and the ripples were spreading fast. Headlines around the world warned of rising prices, supply shortages, and a new era of economic uncertainty. The global auto industry, once predictable and stable, was suddenly in chaos. Assembly lines slowed, shipping ports grew congested, and factories faced the threat of shutdowns. For companies like Kenji's, the new reality was clear: adapt or get left behind. Executives and engineers scrambled to find new partners, new markets, and new ways to survive. The trade war was no longer just about cars, it was about the future of global commerce, the rules of international trade, and the fate of millions of workers around the world. And this was only the beginning. The world was bracing for what would come next, as the first shot in the trade war echoed across continents. Why did Europe risk a trade war with China over electric vehicles? The answer goes deeper than just economics or politics. At its core, Europe feared for the survival of its own car industry, a sector that employs millions and is a symbol of European innovation and pride. For decades, brands like Volkswagen, Renault, and Peugeot have dominated European roads, shaping the continent's identity and economy. But, suddenly, Chinese electric vehicles, cheaper, technologically advanced, and surprisingly reliable, began flooding the market, threatening to upend the status quo almost overnight. European leaders accused China of unfairly subsidizing its carmakers, arguing that these state-backed incentives gave Chinese companies an artificial edge over European rivals. In response, the EU imposed tariffs of up to 48% on Chinese EVs, hoping to level the playing field and protect local manufacturers from being overwhelmed. Not everyone in Europe agreed with this tough stance. France, for example, pushed hard for protectionist measures to defend its own auto sector, while Germany, whose car makers rely heavily on exports to China, worried about possible retaliation that could hurt their own bottom line. Hungary, eager to attract Chinese investment and jobs, also opposed the move, highlighting the deep divisions within the EU. The EU was split, but ultimately chose to take the risk, betting that protecting local jobs and industries was worth the potential backlash from China and the global market. The stage was set for a major escalation, with both sides preparing for a prolonged standoff. The hope was to save European car makers and preserve jobs, but the risks, economic, political, and diplomatic, were enormous and could not be ignored. Would these tariffs actually help Europe's car industry, or would they backfire and make things even worse for everyone involved? The answer would soon become clear as the trade war heated up, with both sides digging in, and global markets watching closely. Europe had drawn its line in the sand, setting the stage for a new era in global trade and competition. China didn't target European cars in return. It went after Europe's political pressure points, aiming to create a ripple effect that would be felt across the continent. First up, pork. China launched investigations into European pork, threatening billions in exports from Spain and Denmark. This move was designed to hit where it hurt, as pork is a significant industry for these countries. The message was clear: hurt our car industry, and we'll hurt your farmers. European farmers were left in a state of uncertainty, fearing for their livelihoods. Next, China targeted French cognac, a luxury symbol and major export. This wasn't just about economics, it was about striking at the heart of French cultural pride. Temporary tariffs sent shockwaves through France's iconic cognac region. Vineyard workers and local businesses were suddenly facing an uncertain future. China's strategy was clear: divide Europe by hitting industries with political clout. By targeting key sectors, China aimed to create divisions within the European Union. The trade war was now about more than cars. It was about livelihoods and national pride. Every move was a calculated effort to apply maximum pressure. China later eased up on cognac tariffs, signaling it could be flexible when it suited its interests. This move showed that China was willing to negotiate, but only on its own terms. But the retaliation didn't stop. Dairy, medical devices and more came under scrutiny. Each new target added to the growing list of industries feeling the heat. Each move was calculated to maximize pain and pressure. Business leaders and policymakers were left scrambling to respond. China showed it had plenty of economic weapons and wasn't afraid to use them. The message was unmistakable: China was a formidable opponent in this trade war. The conflict was escalating, with no easy off-ramp in sight. The stakes were getting higher and the global economy was feeling the strain. Europe's unity was being tested, one product at a time. The pressure was mounting, and the cracks were beginning to show. The trade war was now a battle of nerves and strategy. Both sides were playing a high-stakes game, with no clear end in sight. While Europe and China traded blows, Japan was caught in the middle. At the G7 summit, Japan joined Western allies in criticizing China's overcapacity. Beijing responded with diplomatic warnings, making it clear Japan's neutrality was no longer an option. Japan's dilemma: so and so de danander, astrar, and denen onstoar, between and mediate Western partners or protect its vital trade with China. Japanese companies, global leaders in high-tech components, suddenly faced uncertainty. When Europe and China fought, Japanese suppliers lost orders and faced disrupted supply chains. A sensor made in Japan installed in a Chinese EV might never reach its European destination. The trade war's fallout was global, and Japan's economy was feeling the squeeze. Decades of careful relationship building were at risk. Japanese firms had to rethink strategies overnight. The message was clear: in a globalized world, no one is truly neutral. Japan's balancing act was becoming impossible. The crossfire was real, and the costs were mounting. The trade war's reach was wider than anyone expected. The EU-China trade war unleashed supply chain chaos, hitting Japanese firms hard. Japanese auto parts makers, once the backbone of global car production, saw orders vanish as Chinese EVs became too expensive for Europe. Factories in China scaled back, leaving Japanese suppliers with idle lines and canceled contracts. Disruptions flowed both ways. Delays, stricter customs, and logistical nightmares became the new normal. The uncertainty made planning impossible and threatened Japan's own car giants. If Europe could wall off China, could Japan be next? The trade war forced every company to rethink its future and fear what might come next. With Europe and the US closing doors, Chinese carmakers pivoted fast. To Central Asia, countries like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan became new priorities, welcoming Chinese EVs and investment. The ancient Silk Road was reborn, now carrying electric cars instead of spices. Russia, isolated by Western sanctions, became a huge new market for Chinese vehicles. Kyrgyzstan emerged as a key re-export hub, funneling Chinese cars into Russia. The trade war didn't stop Chinese exports, it just redirected them. Central Asia's open markets and Russia's demand gave Chinese automakers a lifeline. The West's tariffs created new winners and losers, redrawing the economic map. Chinese companies adapted, proving that trade always finds a way. Barriers don't stop trade, they just change its direction. Central Asia rolled out the red carpet for Chinese EVs. In Kazakhstan, sales of Chinese electric cars skyrocketed, transforming city streets. Governments offered incentives, built factories, and invested in charging networks. Uzbekistan's new BYD plant aimed to produce 500,000 cars a year. For the first time, electric and hybrid imports outpaced gasoline cars. Central Asian leaders saw partnership with China as a path to modernization and prosperity. Chinese brands quickly dominated, building not just sales, but entire ecosystems. The region's economic landscape was transformed, permanently. Western tariffs and China's pivot to new markets have redrawn the global trade map. The old superhighways of commerce, China to Europe and the US, are now blocked or rerouted. In their place, new Silk Road corridors link China, Central Asia, and Russia. Central Asia, once peripheral, is now a vital hub. Japanese businesses, built around the old map, scramble to adapt. The world is fragmenting into competing trade blocs. For global companies, the era of a single open market is over. Political alliances now matter as much as efficiency. The new map is here to stay, and it's more complex than ever. Navigating it will be the challenge of the next decade. The EU-China EV trade war proved that no country is an island in the global economy. Japan, an innocent bystander, paid a heavy price, lost orders, supply chain chaos, and mounting uncertainty. Trade wars are blunt instruments, causing collateral damage far beyond their targets. The West's attempt to contain China's EV industry didn't stop it, it simply rerouted it. Central Asia and Russia became new spheres of Chinese influence. The biggest lesson? Trade wars rarely have winners. Retaliation is costly, and unintended consequences are everywhere. In a connected world, the safest fight is often the one you avoid.